Can somebody check up on Xiox? Are we all certain that he's okay right now? One day before we received the new Plunge set leaks, he got this amazing double crit Onimo goblet, and then boom, new Plunge set. So with that being said, for any of you that play Plunge characters, is the new set going to be worth it for you? Hello there, Flip here, and today we're going to be looking at the 2 new artifact sets and going over how much of an increase it is to the current roster of characters. Or if the set is even really an increase at all, because I have a feeling that some of the results in this video that I calculated may shock you. But before we do that, as always, if at any points during the video you're entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta and I'll try to keep you updated. Shout out to all my lovely channel members, I really do appreciate your support, and with that, let's begin. Alright, so we have 2 new artifact sets coming in 5.5, in which one of them seems useless right now, and the other is the Plunge artifact set. So let's talk about what they actually do, as especially on Reddit I've seen a lot of misconceptions about how the sets operate. The first artifact set I want to talk about is going to be Finale of the Deep Galleries. The 2-piece effect gives a 15% cryo damage bonus, which is pretty standard. The 4-piece effect is kind of interesting though. When you have 0 energy, normal attack and burst damage bonus is increased by... Okay, so originally it was 40%, but it seems that was immediately hotfixed on CN's beta to now be 60% damage bonus, which makes more sense considering the fact that a 40% damage bonus actually would have been a nothing set. So you get a 60% burst and normal attack damage bonus basically. And when you deal damage with either a normal attack or burst, the opposite damage type will lose the 60% damage bonus. So if your burst deals damage, your normal attacks no longer benefit from the damage bonus basically. And if it isn't painfully clear, there is not a single soul in Teyvat that wants this set. For 99.9% of the cast, it's literally impossible to be at 0 energy, as this would be not using a skill on anyone in your rotation. And even if you did that, enemies drop energy particles when you get them to a certain threshold. Enemies also generate energy when they die, so yeah. The only character that can actually take advantage of this set theoretically would be Malfuika, as her burst isn't fueled by energy and instead fighting spirit. So I guess for nuke setups, for the 60% burst damage bonus, you could use it on her to hit a high screenshot number or something. But for actual practical uses, no. The set is pretty clearly made for a character that we don't have in the game yet, in which my mind immediately goes to Skirk, as she was rumored to be cryo. Anyways, there's not really much to say about this set. Let's move on to talk about the Plunge set. It's called the Long Night's Oath, and the 2-piece effect increases plunging attack damage bonus by 25%, which is actually a unique 2-piece effect. And then for the 4-piece effect, it's a little bit complicated, but essentially you have a potential 5 stacks of this new set, and each stack you have will increase your plunging damage by an extra 15%, adding on top of the 2-piece effect. So in total, you can gain a 100% plunging damage bonus with this set if you manage to stack it, in which there are 3 methods of gaining these stacks. Hitting an enemy with a plunging attack will give you 1 stack, hitting an enemy with an elemental skill will give you 2 stacks, and hitting an enemy with a charge attack will also give you 2 stacks. I've seen a lot of people think this set is like Polar Star or the Nim's Dream set, to where you need to do a charge attack, plunge, and skill in order to gain all the stacks, but that isn't the case. From the wording of this set, even repeating the same action is stackable, and can net you the maximum damage bonus. It's just that using charge attacks or skills are more effective for this. This set was made with Varesa in mind, as in her optimal combos she will do a skill charge attack plunge combo, which would immediately give her all stacks by her second plunge, and would last throughout her whole rotation. But for other characters, they can't really do this as easily, which we'll talk about later. Going back to Varesa, the plunging set is shaping up to be her best artifact set, but only by a small margin over Codex, by like at most 5%. My ghostwriter for Varesa info at this point did calculations on her, so I'm going to show them up on screen now, and as standard, if you want to get information on the 5.5 characters the fastest, make sure to go check out Vonfi's Twitch, as he does his calculations and theory crafting live, even allowing you to give recommendations. But yeah, even though Varesa doesn't consume Night Soul points immediately, and even though she isn't even in her Night Soul blessing state for half the time she's on field, 40% crit rate is just stupidly hard to beat. I do think this set will hopefully get buffed so it's more impactful on her, but as of right now it seems like you can get by with just using Codex. Let's move on to the Lamenter himself, Xiao. Xiao should be able to maintain 5 stacks of this set pretty easily as well, although you will have to change your combo slightly if you want to use the set. The set does have a cooldown with the same attack of 1 second, so unfortunately Xiao doing 2 E's will only grant him 1 stack, as it comes out so quickly. So his first plunge will only have 2 stacks, but after you do his first plunge you get another stack for it, and if you want to get max stacks, then from this plunge you want to combo into a charge attack, and then from your second plunge onwards you should range from 4 to 5 stacks mostly. A big problem with this set is that the stacks only last 6 seconds, so if you're like Xiao and start the rotation with your skill and only plunge from there, there'll be a point where you do lose a stack and you won't be able to get it back instantly, so it does kind of wane a bit. I looked at Xiao with 3 different weapons, as they all usually change how you want to build him. Starting with Deathmatch, the Oath set is a decent 6% above even Vermilion, and pretty hugely above the Marosha Sei set due to Deathmatch giving you so much crit rate that it's impossible to not overcap. If you're using Staff of Homo and Xiao, then Marosha Sei is slightly better than Vermilion now, and once again the Oath set is ahead ahead of both by 5%. And calculating with Jade Spear, once again Marochisei falls as crit rate becomes less valuable, and Oath is still slightly ahead of Vermilion by 3%. So universally, assuming you do the charge attack after your first plunge, this is just currently Xiao's best artifact set. The only problem though is that the increase is small enough to where I don't think you need to go out of your way to farm it, unless you also have plans for most likely what will be Skirk's best artifact set. One more thing I do want to say is that for Xiox and a certain section of Xiao mains in particular, this set may not be actually worth farming for. The thing with this set is that all it does is increase plunging damage bonus. Xiox has a C6 Xiao, in which you very often end up spamming elemental skills, and because Vermilion does something for those elemental skills but the Oath set doesn't, at C6 Xiao's best set should still be Vermilion anyways, to where Xiox won't actually see a performance upgrade. So at the very least, besides meme reasons, there's no real incentive for anyone with a C6 Xiao to farm for this, and overall if you already have a competent set for him, this isn't enough of an increase to justify spending resin over. Also, I forgot to say this, but if you're using the new set and have a Jade Spear or Homa, then an attack goblet is very slightly better than an Onoma goblet, so do with that information what you will. I want to now talk about that boy Jia Ming next, as the set is kind of shit on him. The new set needs you to hit opponents with an elemental skill, charge attack, or plunge. Plunges generate the least amount of stacks, and with Gaming, he doesn't have any elemental skill hits. And he's a Claymore character. Unlike Xiao, you're not going to be able to sneak in charge attacks with him. You also aren't spamming plunges at Mach speed with him, so it doesn't seem like Gaming will ever be able to max out the set bonus. And he will generally hover around 2 to 3 stacks. So overall, this set doesn't really do anything for Gaming. Also, I do want to say that these videos do take a decent amount of effort and time, so if you do want to support me by sharing my videos around, it would mean a lot to me. And if you decide to do so, then thanks a bunch. Back to my schizophrenic ramblings though. Now, in a surprising turn of events, Diluc can actually use this set amazingly and even upkeep a solid amount of stacks. But this may have some practical issues as it's a setup that will require more field time, so I would recommend using a Song of Days Past Xianyun instead of a Viridescent one, so you can skip both Bennett and Xianyun taking extra field time to get the Pyro Swirl. Anyways, with Diluc, you can use 3 skills before plunging on him, and this should give you 4 stacks from the first and third skill hit, so already going into your first plunge you will have an 85% plunge damage bonus, and after your first plunge you will have all stacks. Because these are skill stacks, when they do run out you'll lose 2 at a time, and Diluc plunging only gives him 1 stack, so you still won't be able to maintain 100% uptime on max stacks, but it's still enough to where this just becomes the best set on Diluc by a decent margin. However, there are some caveats to this. As I said prior, you can't really do VV setups on Xianyun because those take too much field time, and this also isn't something Diluc can do on melt teams if you are to use him on them, as unlike Vape, which can get 2 pyro applications before the Hydro Aura runs out, 1 pyro application would wipe a Cryo Aura, and wasting one of your few melts to set up the set wouldn't be worth it. So while it is nice for Diluc, I'm unsure whether you'd actually want to farm it due to all the restrictions listed. The last character we are talking about is Hu Tao, in which her skill does no damage, so it can't trigger the effect, but at the very least you can get 2 stacks before your first plunge by doing a charge attack, and by your second plunge you will have all 5 stacks. And because Hu Tao does constant charge attacks which generates 2 stacks, you'll be able to upkeep max uptime on the set after your first plunge. The only problem is that even with factoring all of that in, the set still loses to Marochisei on Hu Tao, simply because plunging, even though it's a majority of her damage on this team, is just 1 part of her damage. Her charge and normal attacks still make up a decent chunk of her damage, so once again the set just falls short. Overall, both sets are kind of garbage. For Varesa, it's barely better than Codex, and for every other character, the stacking mechanic is too hard to achieve reasonably, and even when it can be achieved, sometimes not all of the character's damage profile is plunging, to where the set is barely better than the other options. As it stands now, despite giving a 100% plunge damage bonus, it's very underpowered, and I expect it to get a buff. Besides increasing the multipliers, one way to buff it is to make it so that using abilities instead of hitting will cause the set to activate. That way Varesa would be able to get full stacks even before her first plunge, so would Hu Tao, and Gaming's elemental skill can't hit anything as it's an enabler for his plunge, so being able to use a skill and it activates the set would actually allow him to max out the buff. I know plunge teams really don't need the help, they are among some of the strongest teams in the game, but if they're going to design a plunge set, I do expect to some degree that it's competent on every plunge character and not just a downgrade or an achievable. But that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you're going to be farming the set, as I'd love to hear it and respond to almost every single comment. Channel members, thank you so much for showing your support, it really does mean the world to me. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.